we are traversing through the Arctic, a landscape few have ever seen before. A journey through this rugged, wild world requires everything we have, shows us no mercy, and yet is so full of magic. We want to understand how this world is changing and what that will mean for all of us. We will meet some people who couldn't be happier and others who see their future in danger. The Arctic has always represented more than just a longing for unspoiled beauty. For thousands of years, it's been considered untamable. But these days, a race has begun about who will conquer it for the future. We have flown around the globe once across the far north to discover what the future holds for all of us, into a world that is changing. We're approaching the Aleutian Islands, a chain of volcanic islands frequently battered by storms and extending from the Alaskan mainland far into the North Pacific. The rugged islands are blanketed in soft green. Our journey through the Arctic begins here, far south of the Arctic Circle. All over the island, there are relics from World War II, shipwrecks and bunkers. Here we have come across a story that suggests a new, dangerous conflict is on the horizon, high up north in the Arctic. But now at the end of July, with high temperatures of around 11 degrees, the Aleutian Islands reveal their gentle, good-natured side. Dutch Harbor on the main island of Unalaska is a top U.S. fishing port, a billion-dollar business. Every year, some 350,000 tons of seafood, pollock, cod, halibut, as well as huge king crabs are offloaded here and shipped all over the world. The leftovers are picked over by the eagles that live here, like pigeons do in Berlin or Venice. In 1741, the 160 or so islands were discovered by Vitus Bering, a Danish officer commissioned by the Russian Tsar to find out if there was a land bridge between the Americas and Russia. A small Russian Orthodox church is a reminder of the days before 1867, when Russia sold the islands, along with Alaska, to the U.S. for $7.2 million. A good deal for America, a deal that Russia regrets to this day. The fishing boat sets off from Dutch Harbor for the fishing grounds in the far north in the Bering Sea. More than 1,000 kilometers away, it's one of the most inhospitable places in the world. It's about 4 o'clock in the morning when the Blue North docks in Dutch Harbor, one ship that can venture deep into the north. For 3 months, they had been navigating the Bering Sea close to the Russian border. The Blue North is the most modern ship in the American fishing fleet, with room for more than 600 tons of fish. We've arranged to meet Captain David Anderson. He's been working the seas as a fisherman since he was 19, first as an ordinary deckhand, now as captain. For months, we've been in contact with him via satellite. He sent us videos that demonstrate what it means to fish in the Bering Sea. Just watching them makes us queasy. Captain Anderson wants to tell us about a dangerous encounter, possibly a new front line, which in his view has received far too little attention.
My initial thought was like, well, I got to listen to these guys, or who knows what they're going to do. You know, they're capable of everything, and they're unpredictable. You know, I got to protect the crew.
Captain Anderson gives us a tour of the ship, his pride and joy. The highlight is the so-called moon pool, a large shaft in the bottom of the ship for hauling in the lines during storms, so that the crew isn't exposed to the weather. The Blue North is a so-called longliner. These lines are a total of 70 kilometers long.
We have 55 magazines on board. One magazine has 1,200 hooks on it. And to buy 55, which is what we have on board, you're looking at 65,000 hooks hanging on board that we have, that we fish in a 24-hour period.
The Blue North is a floating state-of-the-art machine, a battleship, if you will. Nearly everything is automated. The fish, mostly cod, are gutted and cleaned, sorted by size and weight, packed and finally deep frozen all on board. It's a huge business. Each shipment brings in more than $3 million to be sold all over the world. However, every year it becomes increasingly difficult to find the fish.
The fish are definitely migrating. There's no doubt about that. And there's only one way for them to go, and that's north. North is, you know, it's colder waters. So they are moving up north further, and we're fishermen. We got to find the fish, and we go where the fish is at. So we're gonna follow them. 10 years ago, we would only have to go 18 hours out, you know, and then now 2.5 days. We're going 2.5 days out to find the fish. That's how much it's changing. It's changing quite a bit.
But the further the fish migrate north towards the Arctic, the closer the coasts of Russia and America become. On the bridge, Captain Anderson tells us the story that made us want to meet him. He recorded the whole incident with his phone.
As the plane was coming, if you see in the video, this is where I was standing, taking the shot of the plane.
An airplane was approaching from the distance.
When I first saw the plane, I just thought it was the Coast Guard. No big deal. Didn't think twice about it. Seen it before. When I found out it was military, that was a different story. I said, okay, now we're in something serious here. Especially when I found out that it wasn't our military.
The aircrew ordered them to turn back, demanding that they set a new course at maximum speed. What made the situation so volatile was that it was Russians ordering an American fishing boat to leave American waters. Also on the bridge was Mike Fitzgerald, the second in command of the Blue North.
Well, I mean, it was just short of action. I mean, they're telling us to get out of the way. They're charging in. I mean, if you had tanks and trucks plowing across the U.S. border anywhere, telling civilians to get out of the way, it's the same thing. We're fishing. We're fishing in our waters, and we have that happen to us.
It remains unclear why the Russian military acted so aggressively. In the harbor, we meet the crew of the Sunward, a small wooden fishing vessel with a crew of 4. There's an atmosphere of concentrated, tense activity. The crew is preparing to set off to their fishing grounds 800 kilometers north of the Bering Sea. After some beer and whiskey the night before, Captain Garrett Gunderson has invited us to come for a trip around the island, while they refuel and stock up on food. That's good for morale on board, he says. Then the crew has something to talk about over the next few days. It's going to be a strenuous trip.
We're going to surf the whole way there. It'll be 10-foot seas, but they'll be on the stern, so we'll surf our whole way there. And then by the time we get there, we'll set gear. The weather will lay down for about 3 days, and then it's going to blow 40. And so we'll try and go around the backside of the island, get protection, and just anchor up there for a day.
On deck, the crew secures the fishing equipment. Waves over 10 meters high are not uncommon in the Bering Sea, but the fishermen are used to storms and waves. There are other things the crew is more concerned about.
They turned on 25 years ago, and you only have to encounter them once or twice, and they know what you're doing. They wait for you to haul your gear, and then they steal your fish.
Oh, really?
Yeah, or prey on your fish. I mean, they hunt fishermen up there. They wait for you.
The killer whales show up, it's game over. And so over the years, with fishing the edge and the killer whales show up, and you got to run from them. we did eventually just started going further north and further north and further north to where there aren't any. The water's too cold up there for whatever reason. They don't go that far north.
But there will come a time when even the sunward can't make the trip. The northern journey has its limits.
The farther north we have to go, it'll start to pace us out of the fishery. We can only go so far. About St. Matthews is about as far north as we can go and still have enough fuel and water and whatnot to make it back to Dutch Harbor. Otherwise, it's just not big enough.
We ask the captain if they have ever been driven off their fishing grounds or if they've ever heard what happened to the Blue North and other fishing boats.
We heard about that last year, and but I never saw it. We never saw it. We were headed out west, and we were told that there's Russian warships and they're not letting guys fish, and Russians.
We wanted to know what he as captain would do if the Russians drove him off his fishing grounds.
By the Russians, I'd be pissed. But what am I gonna do? Is it like the military or? Yeah. Oh, I'd run. I don't have any guns. Like, throw fish at them, you know.
Back on the Blue North, after their encounter with the Russian military, the two captains are now expecting the American government to act. They knew that the Arctic is changing.
So this is the EEZ.
Fish are moving north. The fishing vessels are moving north. I think the military should move north too. I think it would be a prudent decision on the U.S. military's side, and for everybody, honestly. I think it would be very prudent, especially for the future of fishing and the future. Who knows what the future holds with the Arctic?
Because the fish keep migrating further and further north towards the Arctic, the fishermen hope for military support. We're beginning to get the feeling that our journey through the Arctic will hold many surprises for us, too. We leave the Aleutian Islands. We're heading east to Pond Inlet in the Canadian Arctic at the entrance to the Northwest Passage. As for Canada, they are already preparing for new conflicts. Baffin Island is the 5th largest island in the world, 1.5 times the size of Germany, and virtually uninhabited. The icebreaker Harry de Wolf of the Royal Canadian Navy is on patrol. Often for days on end, they travel through uninhabited terrain, through a world that is increasingly turning from white to blue. Captain Gleason and his crew are surveying the seafloor, water depth, and geological structures. To operate here in the remoteness of the Arctic North, you need to have a precise grasp of what it looks like above and below the water.
According to this, our depth should be 50 meters, but the reality was that it was 80 meters, not 50 meters. So it's not good enough to navigate safely on to keep a ship safe, particularly this size. Maybe a sailboat, but not a ship this size.
Capture by fix MPI, 100 yards, quarter track, safe, additional 70 yards.
On deck, the crew prepares for something Canada has never carried out up here before. This is only a test, but it will soon be standard procedure for patrols through the Northwest Passage.
Roger. All right, so just passing on to you, Trevor. So they said they're about 5 minutes away for slowing down, so then we can deploy.
As the ship slows down, Gleason's crew lowers a thick cable into the water. Attached to the cable is a kind of sled, a state-of-the-art sonar device that they will pull through these remote Arctic waters.
We conducted our first underwater sovereignty patrol using a total array system to look under the water and to listen under the water and to start building more of an understanding of the Arctic waters and how submarines and other vessels can operate up in the north to either support sovereignty or challenge it.
Canada wants to demonstrate that it's not only capable of staking its claim in the Arctic, but also of enforcing it. Also on board are a squad of paratroopers from southern Canada. They're making final preparations before going ashore. The soldiers are to get a feel for how large and remote this land is. In case of an emergency, they'll have to defend it.
Okay, so we're going to send you all ashore all at once initially, and then you're going to stage yourself ashore. Once you're ashore and you establish your positions, So I need you guys to dress warmly. You're going to be out there for at least 4 or 5 hours. Make sure you have water and food and things like that with you to keep you going. You're going to burn a lot of calories in the cold, as you know. And just take care of everybody else as well when you're there, okay? Any questions? Have fun.
Only very few Canadians know their own country here in the north. It is still too far away and too difficult to reach. One can sense that it's also a great adventure for the soldiers to be out here at the northern edge of the world, to experience for themselves the power of this wild and pristine nature. They're training to work together with the Arctic Rangers, a local Inuit unit that patrols the entire north of Canada, from the west to the east coast. They will be learning from and with each other. The Rangers show the soldiers how to survive in this harsh world, where they are often left to their own devices. Shooting and gutting seals is one of the most important survival strategies, because seal meat contains a lot of vitamin C, they say, important in an area where there are neither trees nor fruits or vegetables. Especially nutritious is the liver.
Well, the consistency in your mouth is like jelly.
But in addition to the vitamins it contains, raw seal meat has another advantage that is particularly important up here in winter.
If you're cold in the winter time, a little bit of that, a little bit of meat, 15 minutes, you're warm.
Yeah?
Yeah, it's a chemical reaction in your body that reacts to the seal blood. Then everything starts going, right? You don't have to eat very much.
The Arctic Rangers are the eyes and ears of the North, local fishermen and hunters who roam the Arctic virtually year-round to provide for their families. And they explain to the soldiers how one survives here.
Nice, dude. Yeah.
The soldiers in turn show the Arctic Rangers how to use a radio to communicate over long distances and equip them with the tools they need for the job.
So they are programmed to talk with anyone around. So they can talk with the plane, with the military plane. They can talk also with the ship. So when you do a search and rescue mission, you can talk with the plane or the helicopter with this radio.
Channel 1.
And even if things don't always work out right away, they're becoming more and more important for the Canadian troops.
Where are you? Our job is to see what's happening in the north, in our territory, respective territory, and if we see anything out of ordinary, like ships, submarines, or other activities, we're to report it back to our headquarters. The last one was 300 clicks out towards Navy Board Inlet, which is about towards north area, and reported seeing something and took a picture.
A submarine?
It was one of the vessels, yes.
As to where the ships and the submarine came from, there's still no answer. But since discovering Soviet underwater maps of the Northwest Passage from the Cold War period that are much more accurate than Canadian maps, Canada has been under the assumption that undiscovered visitors have been navigating Canadian waters for a long time now. For the soldiers, one thing is very clear.
Military-wise, we need to wave the flag. I think we need more boots on the ground, just to show your average Canadian or people overseas that, yeah, we are here, we're patrolling the area. There's been too much debate about who owns what or whatever. I think in order for us to, we can't just leave the backyard open. We got to put a fence around it. So we would be that fence line. We just show people that we're here.
The North is changing at a breathtaking pace, and Canada's government is trying to keep up. The Harry de Wolf is its first response. Additional robust patrol boats of this type are under construction, and Canada plans to deploy them in the Arctic in the next few years.
We're just starting to operate up in the north as a matter of routine business. Because the Arctic ice is allowing us to do that now. The ships don't normally operate up that far north at any time. But as the Canada's Arctic continues to open, ice allows ships to operate further north. It puts Canada in a position that it has to put ships further north, and the Royal Canadian Navy is part of that plan.
Canada wants to preserve its sovereignty over the Northwest Passage and doesn't want to become a pawn of the Arctic superpowers, the US and Russia. But even if the ice is slowly disappearing, Captain Gleason has a message for all those who intend to roam around up here.
Don't underestimate the Arctic. It's not something that you can control. It will change. You need to go into the Arctic with a plan, but understand that your plan may fail at first contact. And then you need to adapt to the situation.
We continue on in a small single-engine propeller plane, accompanied by Dirk Reuter. He's an experienced pilot who has made landings in Antarctica. Before we take off, we have to practice putting on our survival suits. Dirk gives us 4 minutes.
It fits! Okay, wow, 2 minutes and 30 seconds. This is pretty damn awesome. Super.
Previously, Dirk was a successful IT entrepreneur and banker. Today he travels the world and is familiar with the flying conditions in places where there is no quick assistance if something goes wrong.
Ready to go.
He's considered one of the best. Ahead of us lies an adventurous journey across the Labrador Sea, Greenland, and the North Atlantic, as we travel many hours over uninhabited territory onto the loneliest corners of the Earth, only accessible by air or ship. The west coast of Greenland emerges in front of us. Dirk descends. Visibility is good. We can't quite comprehend at first what we're looking at, where we are headed. This is a world that hardly anyone has seen before. A world that immediately mesmerizes us. We fly over jagged ice landscapes that continuously change colors. We fly low over glaciers and through fjords, and it leaves us breathless again and again. It's a world of such natural wonders that we are humbled in its presence. But this is a merciless world that permits no mistakes. Many have died up here or have crashed while trying to cross the mighty ice sheets. Here, it is rarely as peaceful and gentle as it was for us.
In the early days of aviation, when traffic to Europe, between North America and Europe, was largely propeller-driven aircraft, they weren't climbing a lot higher than the top of the ice cap, like 14,000 feet. And there were situations where people just flying in the fog, you know, looked perfectly fine. There was moments when people just heard the cluck, cluck, cluck of the props hitting the ice, and then the aircraft just landed. Hopefully those all turn out really quite well.
We travel for hours over a mountain range with valleys filled to the summit with ice. The gigantic glaciers have formed over the last 2 to 3 million years. 80% of Greenland is still covered by ice. Life is only possible on the coast. We approach Klesok in the southeast of the island. Small houses appear below us, their bright colors announcing that we are no longer alone. Klesok is one of the few settlements on the east coast of Greenland. About 200 people live here, subsisting on hunting and fishing. In the last century, this isolated place, where time seems to stand still, was swept into the torrent of history as if overnight, and now finds itself at the mercy of the global politics of climate change. After landing, we're amazed when airport security drives a large bulldozer in front of the plane. The boss of the airport himself is in charge of the operation.
All right.
Windbreaker.
This is our windbreaker. Otherwise, everything flies away when the wind comes. Last month, we had 100 knots, which is about 158 kilometers per hour.
2 concrete blocks are moved under the wings to tie the plane down. Many years ago, a Frenchman was here with a much larger aircraft. He didn't think it was necessary. The damage can still be seen at the end of the runway. In the tower, we ask what else we should watch out for. The air traffic controller has a rifle next to his computers. We ask Hans what this is all about.
Some days we need to go, we need to walk, so we have to be careful for the polar bears.
Really?
Yeah.
Have you ever seen one?
Yeah.
But we won't meet any polar bears, not until much later, that is. We have an appointment with Rasmus Poulsen. He's the full-time captain of the local police boat. He has something to show us to illustrate that the Arctic has long ceased to be the white, cold wonderland that we imagine far off at the northern end of the world, even in the most remote of places. A 2-hour boat ride awaits us, full speed ahead, deeper and deeper into a world that seems so pure and pristine, and yet it is not. We land at a pier surrounded by crystal clear water with stone and snow towering above us. We still can't see what's hidden further ahead. First, we've got to get ashore. But at an older age, this can be quite a challenge.
Yeah, that's the best. Or a hand. Give me a hand.
Anita? No.
Once that's done, and we've carried our equipment up the shoreline, we come across a bizarre landscape of rust and steel. A still life that tells a story that few know. We are on Bluey East 2, an American military base from World War II, or rather what the U.S. troops left behind after they left.
The airfield was built here in the 40s as a part of the World War II. It's a part of the Atlantic Bridge, so in case some of the planes going from Narsarsuaq, Kangerlussuaq had any troubles, they could land here.
At that time, far out behind these mountains in the Atlantic, a merciless submarine war was raging. German submarines were sinking many Allied convoys and naval units. Greenland and its east coast was vital for the battles in the Atlantic and the bombing of Germany. Greenland is known as the weather kitchen, where weather is cooked up for Europe. Whoever controls Greenland knows what is coming and thus has a decisive tactical advantage. Thus began a cat and mouse game between the Americans and the Germans, as both tried secretly to build weather stations on the rugged, virtually uninhabited coast. But the German attempts failed, not least because local Inuit detected them in the wilderness. But the war forever changed the lives of the Inuit, who previously had little or no contact with the outside world.
But at that time, basically we had Stone Age here. People were living off what they could find in nature, using driftwood, stones, animals, and the things they could find in nature. And then US came in, and they brought Coca-Cola, canned food, all these different things. So it basically escalated during World War II. People got in touch with all these nice new things. So after the war, they couldn't take all these things away from them again.
Yeah, it's still working.
At first glance, Bluey East 2 looks like a monstrous environmental crime in a pure and completely untouched wilderness. But for those who live in this barren place, where they are dependent on driftwood washing up from Siberia, it's been a real blessing.
People have been out here taking things We have houses inside the sea log and around in the settlements coming from this area, so they have been out here taking the houses apart, bringing them into the town. We have all the oil drums laying around, which used to be full of fuel at some point. They have left some with fuel in, so people have been out here taking the fuel. We have no engines in the cars.
No engines in the cars. What happened to them?
They have probably been used for generators in town. They have been used for boat engines and so on. So people have been out here taking the things they have been looking at and saying, oh, I can use that for something. And that could be an engine, that could be light, that can be steering wheel, whatever they now have.
There have been debates about whether to remove Bluey East 2 to dispose of the traces of the war here. Rasmus Poulsen and many others here are against it. Bluey East 2 is a fascinating open-air museum and a cautionary reminder.
I think it's a very nice place to come because it tells history about World War II, Greenland, and we can see how much influence people can have on something. And then when they leave, it will last. It takes time for nature, especially the Arctic nature, taking things back.
With the end of World War II, U.S. troops left the fjord, along one of the loneliest coasts in the world. But the conflicts are returning to the north, surfacing in places that are still out of reach for most people. We have to get back before it gets dark, but plan to travel further north the next morning. It will be a night filled with magic. The next morning, a tractor arrives with a fuel tank. We want to fly on to Turmi, possibly the most remote settlement in the world. It will be a long, cold flight. Dirk adds something to the gasoline.
Oh, it's an additive that prevents the fuel from, shedding out the ice crystals, and would basically stop the engine. So that would
That would be good if it stopped the engine.
That would be a good thing, yes, particularly in this climate.
And because we have only one engine.
That too.
Okay, thank you.
With the aircraft refueled and cleared, we head into the tower one more time to say goodbye. And for one last briefing about the flight route. We have nearly 1,000 kilometers ahead of us on a route that very few have flown before.
It's all uncontrolled all the way up to control point if you're flying below 195.
So what do we have to take care of flying up north?
Well, we have the biggest mountain between control point and Klesok. It's laid around here. It's called the Fjord. It's around 4 kilometers high.
4,000 meters?
4,000 meters.
It's here, right?
It's around here. I'm not sure.
We quickly clean the windows one last time. In case of poor visibility, we must be careful not to fly too low. In this rough terrain, it could be a while before we're rescued. We cram ourselves into the small plane as best we can, with equipment and survival suits stuffed into the cabin. Up and off into an unknown world. After takeoff, we follow the coastline. And once again, we are enthralled by the power of such majestic nature. After half an hour or so, we once again cross a rugged ice landscape up across the ice sheet where Greenland's highest mountains tower. The peaks of a mountain range rise up from under sheets of ice several kilometers deep. Even Dirk is amazed.
For example, watching the glaciers close up, they have these sort of, I don't know what you call them, birthing marks, very deep structures where the glacier is hitting the water, and then further up as the ice field is basically 100% smooth, looks like a powder snow paradise for skiers. And then in between we have, you know, this section right now, basically one Matterhorn after the other. I don't know enough about geology, but it's just stunningly beautiful with these pyramid shapes, some horizontal striping from the snow, and the contrast from the black rock or dark gray rock and the white snow is just gorgeous.
But what may seem from the safety of the sky to be heavenly is in fact brutal and unforgiving on the ground. In 1930, during his last Greenland expedition, German meteorologist Alfred Wegener perished somewhere out here on the ice. In the German research facility that bears his name, the Alfred Wegener Institute, they continue Wegener's adventurous research in the Arctic. In 2019, as part of a spectacular expedition, scientists aboard the research icebreaker Polarstern buckled down for a whole year adrift in the pack ice at the North Pole. They collected data on climate, ice, and water. Before our trip, we met with the leader of the expedition in Bremerhaven, hoping to get an idea of what was in store for us.
Previously, there had always been more than 8 million square kilometers of ice out on the Arctic. But these days, during our expedition, we had less than 4 million square kilometers. The thickness of the ice also decreased by half. In a few decades, there will be no ice in the Arctic in summer.
However, the disappearance of the Arctic pack ice is having dramatic consequences far beyond the Arctic.
If the Arctic sea ice disappears, the dark ocean will absorb much more energy from the sun, since most of the energy from the ice is radiated right back again. In other words, a white surface will be replaced by a dark one. This will cause the Arctic to warm even more, and this may also act to destabilize Greenland. We are now seeing it rain in Greenland, which is an extremely rare weather phenomena, but it is now happening more frequently in Greenland. Rain in Greenland.
Rain on the ice sheets of Greenland. Scientists expect that it may soon rain here more than it snows, which would have dramatic consequences for the entire planet.
The ice sheet in Greenland is immensely important for the climate. It contains gigantic quantities of fresh water, which, unlike the Arctic sea ice, is on the land and not on the ocean. And that's very important. If this ice melts, the sea level will rise. And there's so much ice in Greenland that it is enough to raise the sea level globally by 5 to 7 meters. Just imagine that.
As we fly over it for hours, one can hardly imagine that such a mighty layer of ice, up to 3 kilometers thick at some spots, will ever melt completely. Then suddenly, it turns blue. Ahead of us lies Scoresby Sound, the largest fjord system in the world. On the other side of the inlet is Itakorturmi, a small Inuit community. Their closest neighbors live on Iceland, some 6,000 to 7,000 kilometers across the Arctic Ocean. Here, they're still sheltered from major political conflicts, but they too can sense that underneath it all, something is changing. A short gravel runway lies at the end of this arm of the fjord, 70 kilometers away from the small settlement. The airport was built by an American oil company in the 1980s, but was abandoned after 5 years. Today, it's the only connection to the outside world. We go down to the beach with a luggage cart. The only way to Itakorturmi is by boat. There are no roads here. Auga and his son Brian are waiting for us at the water. They greet us warmly. Visitors don't come by that often. The trip to the settlement takes an hour and a half on this cool late autumn day. We must hurry. This time of year, it gets dark early. Åge and his wife Mette invite us to dinner with their children. There will be something very special for us. Homemade musk ox burgers from the first musk ox that Brian, the youngest, recently shot. First thing the next morning, we put on an extra layer of clothing. With our thick jackets, we squeeze into insulated suits that will protect us from the wind, water, and cold. This time of year, it can drop to -15 or -20 degrees. As we set off, it's about -10. We ride in an open boat with Olena and Akalu. Olena's parents say goodbye. Dirk and Brian, one of our 2 cameramen, go with Åge. Long distances far into the fjord or the ocean are always done with 2 boats for safety. We set out on an experiment. We want to go to a place that no Inuit has ever reached in October. It's too deep in the fjord, too close to the ice sheet, 250 kilometers from Itakortormi, as the crow flies. We will spend several days traveling through the fjord, and no doubt some of that time we will regret ever coming on this journey at all. On this cold but peaceful late October day, we could not begin to imagine what was in store for us.